All right, so this is Trap, the latest movie by M. Night Shyamalan. It just came out. I just saw it yesterday. I'm not a fan of M. Night Shyamalan, pretty much at all. Late in the Water, Glass, but especially The Last Airbender because of how much I love that Avatar show, the animated show, one of the best animated shows I think of all time. So yeah, I have issues with him, but I try to be fair with him, right? So last year came out with Knock at the Cabin. Some people didn't like that one. I really like that movie. Interesting plot that I think played out pretty well. Great performances, especially by Dave Bautista. I really like that one. I'm not gonna prolong how I feel about this one. I did not like this movie at all. I thought this was really bad. I mean, I was actually kind of like taken aback by it. I was like, I don't M Night, like you had an interesting premise with this, and I thought you're gonna be able to do something with it, but you just can't help it, right? You just can't help but have just like terrible dialogue, terrible writing. I mean, I was confused. I was like, what are you doing with this? What's going on? So in this, we have Cooper, played by Josh Hartnett, and his daughter, Riley, played by Ariel Donahue. They're going to this concert for the singer that she really likes, Lady Raven. We'll talk about her, definitely talk about her a little bit later. It seemed like he's doing it to like cheer her up. Her and her friends got into it. They're not talking to each other, something like that. They bring it up, but they don't really go into it. I guess we got other things to focus on. But they go to the concert, and he starts to see that there's a really significant police presence. It's like, what the hell's going on? I mean, there's just police everywhere. So he finally asks one of the guys that's like selling shirts, and he's like, what's going on? And he's like, hey, the serial killer, the butcher, right? They've been trying to get this guy, whatever. They somehow know that the guy's going to be here at this concert. So they're watching all the doors, the exits, and stuff like that. They're checking everybody, and they're really trying to get this guy. There's no way out. Like they're gonna get him. And this is not a spoiler. It's in the trailer. Cooper, our main character, actually is the butcher. He's got this live feed of this person, his latest victim, tied up in some building somewhere. So he then is like kind of panicking, obviously, and he basically has to find a way to get out of there with his daughter without being caught. So he has to, pretend to be employees at different times and steal people's key cards, things like that. Just trying to figure a way to get out of there. I didn't like this movie. We've already established that. But positives. I think the cinematography is pretty good, right? M. Night Shyamalan, his movies, even the bad ones like this one, usually have pretty good cinematography. He knows where to put the camera. He knows how to get shots that are a little bit more artistic or dynamic. So it's not just kind of like flat when it comes to cinematography. This concert, right? It feels like a real concert. Like it feels like you're watching one of those like concert movies that some singers have had and things like that. He kind of feels like that. He goes out of his way with the production and the way that it's shot to make it feel real. I think the performances, for the most part, are okay. This young actress that plays Riley, Ariel Donahue, I thought she was pretty good for what she had to do. And then some other characters that come up too. There's this profiler, Dr. I guess Josephine, Haley Mills. I thought she was all right, even though her character wasn't great. And this main character, Cooper, Josh Hartnett, I think he's doing the best job he can with the material for the most part. I think everything that doesn't work about his performance is M. Night's direction, where he's supposed to kind of be putting on this nice persona, but it's a little too much to the point where it's kind of like, I don't know about this guy. Or whenever he actually has to be in that serial killer, like he's fully in his serial killer persona, where he's like, kind of going off. That doesn't feel as believable as it should, but for the most part, I thought the guy was at least decent. All right, so let's get to negatives. We're going to get to spoiling some stuff in a second, but because I have to talk about certain things. But the movie is first of all, the dialogue is terrible, right? And so much of it is just explaining things because they don't care to actually give you background on this guy, other than like legit background. Like he has a family. Well, they're not interested in the family dynamic or how he's been able to do all this and all this time without the family knowing or catching on to it. There's a little bit with the wife later on, but for the most part, they're not interested in really, really developing this guy. Things are just kind of happening. He's doing things. He should be getting caught, but he's not. Pretending to be an employee, causing an explosion at some food place. That's in the trailer. just getting away with everything, stealing walkie-talkie and things like that, getting up on the roof and getting questioned. He's able to just get on out of there. There are cameras everywhere. I guess people aren't watching the cameras. Either way, there's cameras and they're recording, I'm sure. So going looking back at the cameras, even if he gets out of here, they would have to know that it was him, right? Because he's going on constantly leaving the concert, leaving his daughter, and doing all this other stuff. Like, come on, like they would know it was him. They would find out. So it's like you lose investment because it's like, what the fuck is the point? He might as well just turn himself in at this point. You're thinking to yourself, you're like, how do they even know he's at this concert to justify everybody being suited and booted and doing all this other stuff? Like, how do they even know? Like, that does get revealed, but that doesn't make it better. We'll talk about that in spoilers, but it's just you lose investment because you don't feel like you know this guy. You don't feel like you know his daughter, right? They keep bringing up that she has issues with her friends. They never really elaborate on that. He has this whole thing where he's seeing his mom, right? I guess serial killers have issues with their parents, their childhood, things like that that made them the way they are or whatever. But they don't really elaborate on that enough for it to matter. It's just like things are just happening. And as things are happening, more and more, it's like, okay, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Or at least it shouldn't have happened in the way that it did. All right, so we got to spoil some stuff here. So uh, things are already so easy and he's getting lucky and things like that, like I said, right? He just happens to go ask some random guy, something, or start talking to some random guy. Turns out to be M. Night Shyamalan, who is related to Lady Raven, the singer, which gets them, gets them backstage, and he's like, "Oh, my daughter has leukemia." So his daughter is the person that gets chosen to go on stage with her. And then the way that they get out is that he pulls her to the side and basically tells her everything that's going on. He's like, "Hey, I'm the butcher that you guys are looking for. Here you go." It's such an awkward moment too. Here you go, and he shows her the live feed of the guy that he's got, the latest guy that he abducted, and then he's about to, I guess, cut up. And he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna kill him with carbon monoxide if you say anything, so you can get me out." So she gets him out, and you think, okay, she's just gonna drop him off wherever, and then maybe call the police afterward. No, now she wants to go home with him and like meet his. And she's like, "Oh, I want to see your place, Riley," and things like that. And so much of this movie is with this pop star is like, and it's not really making sense. It's unrealistic as hell. And I'm thinking, what the hell's going on? And the actress is horrible. And I was like, why are you focusing so much on her? And then, literally, as I turned on the camera today, I looked at who plays Lady Raven because I was like, this might not even be an actor. Maybe she's just a pop star or something because she's that bad. Her name is Salika Shyamalan. So I assume she's related to M. Night Shyamalan, which that makes 100% sense now. Regardless, maybe she's an alright singer with these generic ass songs if she's even actually singing them herself. But she is fucking terrible in this movie, right? She always feels like she's detached, like she's putting on a persona, like almost like she's talking to her fans. Like when she tells her fans to put their phones up and forgive people who have done them wrong and things like that. Real nonsense. Real, like, put on phony bullshit for her fans. But she talks like that with pretty much everything. It's like your life is in peril right now. It's like I don't feel it. You don't believe anything this woman says. She's breaking down crying at one point and things like that. You never believe any of it. Not a word out of her mouth feels natural when it comes to her line delivery. It's one thing for her to put on like an act so that Riley doesn't catch on to what's going on. But even when it's just her and Cooper, it still feels like, oh, what is going on? What are you doing? So she goes into the bathroom, takes his phone, goes into the bathroom. He starts freaking out, knocking on the door. The family's going crazy. And she goes on and like starts a live stream so that she can find a random fan that can find this guy that's in this random building with a blue door, right? Because I guess his face wasn't covered the whole time. Why not? I don't know. So he knows certain things. And so she's like, oh, go with the parent and call the police and go over there. And so within like 2 or 3 minutes, Cooper gets his phone back. He looks at it and he's like, oh, and the guy's gone. I was like, that's bullshit. That they would not have been able to get him that quickly. But whatever. The police come to the house. He gets in some kind of secret door or whatever that led him outside, and he took out a police officer and put on their uniform. Something that happens off screen. This guy's supposed to be a serial killer. You never see him kill anybody. You never even see any bloody tools in his safe houses or whatever. You don't see anything, right? Really, he only attacks one police officer, and that's about it. Or two. The other one's off screen, like I just said. But he gets in the limo and drives off with her, and it's like, why are you doing that? Why are you taking such a high profile hostage in a limo? Or like, why? Why not just steal another car and try to get away? Why not just like run off? Right? They think you're in the house. They're surrounding the house. Why not run off into the woods somewhere or into the neighborhood? And it's so that we can keep Salika Shyamalan in the movie. That's it. So they go somewhere. Obviously, a crowd starts forming because they can see her in the limo. She's like, "Help!" And they start surrounding it because they're like, "Oh, something's going on." And somehow he's able to put on some clothes and like get out of the limo and blend in with the crowd. It's like nobody in that crowd saw him get out of the limo. It's like, okay, man. He goes back home and he finds out from his wife that she thought he was cheating, followed him to one of his houses or whatever, and left the concert receipt. Somehow she had him, I guess. Left the concert receipt there. She's like, oh, well, if he is the butcher, then, they'll catch him. If he's not, then they'll clear him or whatever. It doesn't make sense. Even with them having the receipt, it doesn't make sense that they would have this many resources for this concert and not have at least a little bit more to go on, right? And they're telling all the employees there, which obviously would cause them to either talk to each other about it and people overhear it, and it would cause a panic, or the butcher would hear it, or they would tell somebody, that person would tell somebody, whatever, it would slip out and the butcher would find out about it. Either way, telling all the employees, right, they would be on need-to-know basis because obviously that would fuck up the whole operation. They don't care. I mean, M. Night doesn't care. None of this makes sense. Still, he tries to make it make sense with her leaving the receipts in the safe house. It still doesn't make sense. He goes after his wife. Somehow the police come back to the house to get him, and they are hell-bent on tasing him for some reason. Even though he attacks a police officer, puts his fingers in the guy's eyeballs, they're still trying to tase him. It's like, really? They would have shot him. Why are they not shooting him dead? And it's just so that we can set up him getting away again in the end. It's just him getting lucky, going from place to place. Everybody around him is just dumb. This whole operation doesn't make any sense that you would tell employees about this and all that. You kind of lose investment because it's like, well, he's doing all this other stuff and there are cameras. So even if he gets away, like they're going to know it's him at some point when they see him constantly leaving and doing all this other stuff. So it's like well, it's pointless at that point. But then as it goes on, it just gets more and more ridiculous where he's able to do things or get away constantly in ways that don't make sense. We're focusing way too much on this pop star because of nepotism and who can't act at all. And the longer it goes on, the dumber it gets. This is trash. Like, it's called Trap. This should be called trash. That's what I'm giving it. This is trash. Like the dialogue is so bad. Like it's so inhuman. Like I think M. Night Shyamalan might be a robot. I really do believe that because for whatever reason in most of these movies, like these conversations, they don't feel like humans talking to each other in a way that feels relatable. This whole crispy thing that he's doing in this movie too with the daughter, but that's it. That's Trap. It's horrible. So don't bother with it. Don't bother. Maybe his next one will be good or at least decent, but don't bother with this one. It is unintentionally funny and even intentionally funny at times, but it's not worth it. But anyway, yeah, that's Trap, and we're done.